Hello, everyone. This presentation is about a paper I co authored with Florinda Palmahil and Hiroshi Taniguchi. The paper was published in Avant's first issue of Volume 13 in 2022. The title of the paper is Piloting Virtual Reality Photo Based Tours Among Students of a Filipino Language Class, a Case of Emergency Remote Teaching in Japan. The COVID 19 pandemic has greatly changed societies in almost every aspect of life since the end of 2019. One area that has been heavily affected by this global crisis is education. The year 2020 served as a turning point for educators across the globe, causing them to reevaluate their pedagogy and look for innovative ways to overcome the challenge of limiting in person meetings for teaching and learning. These strategies can be collectively called pandemic pedagogies. One popular instance is emergency remote teaching, or ERT, which is temporarily transferring in person classes into the virtual space. This was the same for a Filipino language class that Flori Sensei was teaching during that time. Before the pandemic, her students used to visit the Philippines in person or face to face to be immersed in the culture, the sights, and sounds to appreciate the language even more. Japan's restrictions during those years prevented that. So, we prototyped some online lessons using virtual reality photo based tours. It's a low cost type of VR tour that only involves photospheric or 360-degree images with interactive hotspots. We had three objectives in this study. First, we wanted to know the levels of satisfaction among students who experienced VR tours in varying levels of immersion or the objective quality of the hardware and software. And then, second, we wanted to know the relationship between student satisfaction and presence, the feeling of being there. And third, we wanted to reflect on the benefits and challenges of this method. We were hoping that even if it didn't reach the levels of realism of physically traveling to the Philippines, it can help them appreciate the country while learning the language. The tours were initially developed using Kula, an online VR tour platform that has a freemium model. And here's an example of a VR tour inside the Quiapo Church in Manila. We did six lessons with various language scaffolds depending on how we felt they needed them. The first, second, fourth, and sixth tours had audio guidance in Japanese and Filipino by two narrators. In contrast, the third and fifth tours were narrated purely in Filipino. Here's the structure of each teaching experiment. At the beginning of the lesson, students were asked to do a pretest of target vocabulary words, and then the lessons were structured into four phases: lesson introduction, virtual tour, focus on grammar, and application. The lessons were conducted from May 22 to June 26 of 2020. Each VR tour was inserted into a 90-minute online synchronous lesson, aiming to increase students' vocabulary, to develop students' ears for recognizing Filipino sounds and rhythm, to let them experience the Philippines virtually, and to let them experience a new way of learning a language. The students, who were all volunteers, were divided into three groups: the low immersion group, who were exposed to PowerPoint presentations; the moderate immersion group, who experienced VR tours but without VR spectacles; and the high immersion group, who experienced VR tours with low cost VR spectacles provided to them for free. And then we collected data from these sources: the pre-VR tour survey, post-semester survey, 6 after-class surveys, and then we conducted two focus group discussions, and we made observation notes in every class. We analyzed quantitative data with non-parametric statistical tests for determining variance among groups and correlation. Then we used reflexive thematic analysis for the qualitative data. Here are some results. As you can see, we didn't include the first lesson to reduce the novelty effect and to remove the influence of some technical or configuration related issues that students encountered. These are the box plots comparing the spread of satisfaction levels among the three groups: red for the low, green for the moderate, and blue for the high immersion group. However, in all five lessons, the differences in satisfaction among the three groups were not statistically significant based on the Kruskal-Wallis test that we performed. It's worth noting, though, that the moderate immersion group generally had higher satisfaction levels compared to the other two groups. You can also see scatter plots illustrating the relationship between presence and satisfaction. There seems to be a positive linear relationship between them. And indeed, from our Kendall-Stowe correlation test, we confirmed that these strong correlations in all lessons were statistically significant. From the reflexive thematic analysis of observation notes, focus group discussions, and answers to the open ended questions of the surveys, students reported increased engagement, perceived vocabulary retention, interest, and authentic information about the Philippines. They also reported a change in perception of the country. The challenges they reported were computer or phone related problems, the clarity of images, and the difficulty of the language used in some of the narratives. While the study cannot be generalized because of the number of participants, we can clearly see how satisfaction is related to presence in a VR tour. While being a low cost alternative, it could also have been the bane of the strategy, as using low cost VR spectacles did not seem to be favored by students. This can be more of an ergonomic issue. However, what really made an impact were comments like, "Now, I really want to visit the Philippines." And these were from students who used to be hesitant to visit the country. Just recently, one of them visited Luneta Park, one of the objects of the tours, and Flori Sensei shared that the students said excitedly, "I visited this place last year in the VR tour." And that gave us all goosebumps. And that ends my short talk about our article. To know more, please read the paper. It can be accessed through the URL and DOI information here. And when citing our article, you can use the one shared below. Thank you very much.